We're coming to you from Winnie Madikizela Mandela House here in Johannesburg, and today we are joined by a political director from So We Vote, Ewan Dawkins. He joins me now in studio. Very good morning to you and welcome to the EFF podcast, Dawkins.
Good morning, Titus. Thank you so much for having me here.
So you and I have been speaking, and I'm glad that you have heeded the call from our loyal viewers of the EFF podcast who requested that you be part of this show, particularly because of your strong views. You hold strong views when it comes to the issues of immigration, and more often than not, the EFF is mostly misconstrued and its position misunderstood when it comes to the issues of border management and immigration. If perhaps you can just talk us through your position on the border issue.
So I think the reason I brought up the issue of immigration was what we were trying to do was answer the question of, what happened to the EFF in this election? Because we saw there was a marginal backtracking in votes, and that could have been attributed to the MK, or that could have been attributed to the issue of immigration. So when we look at the issue of immigration, I definitely think the EFF has been misconstrued. I don't think it's, completely just people not understanding the policy of the EFF. I think the EFF might have been able to work a bit better in explaining it outrightly. I've read the manifesto, and it's a wonderful document, but the only place immigration is really mentioned is in progressive international affairs, and it doesn't really go exactly into what is supposed to be said. But I think, Dr. Ndlozi also went on and talked quite about immigration and tried to explain it. But I think the issue of immigration and illegal immigration is something that is being purposefully misconstrued in the South African context. And it's been purposefully misconstrued to keep those in power in charge, and to keep the utility of political xenophobia, vibrant in this country so that they can keep those who have wealth and power in their seats. So when we look at the issue of immigration, the reason I bring up the issue of borders so often is that we have to firstly understand that, why are these people coming to South Africa in the first place? So when we look at the issue of why people are coming into South Africa, is that there's a national question, or should I say, African national question about immigration. So we know that a lot of these countries are suffering from issues of US imperialism. They're suffering from issues of, lack of democracy and so forth. And what the EFF plans to do, and that's why we really spoke about it, was that they're trying to address the main causes that are causing those people to come. So we have people like, Gayton McKenzie, who's like, we must just close the borders and stop them from coming. I think that's a very good policy on the part of the EFF to explain that just closing the borders isn't possible. And it's not possible both physically or fiscally. Because when we look at our borders, we know that the land border of South Africa is longer than the border of the US and Mexico. And that's a border that spans a continent. And with the amount of funding we have to actually police and control those borders, we understand it's a lot less than the United States. So when we look at these sort of issues of what we can actually do to prevent illegal immigration, like Gayton says, to build a wall or to put more police on those borders, we understand it's almost impossible. And, there's questions of, ethics, if it should be ethically right to deny Africans access to African countries. But if we do hold the point that we want to prevent immigration, we do hold the point that that would be beneficial, we know that their policies aren't going to work. Because when we have such a long border, when we have an inability and physical inability to police and protect that border, we're not going to have a reduction in immigration. But secondly, what we have to look at is why these immigrants are not coming legally. And we understand that's an issue with documentation. The ANC went and gazetted another green paper to make legal immigration easier, but it hasn't been effective and so forth. And I think what the EFF's policy when it comes to creating an African passport really looks like the best measurement. So when we have Zimbabweans coming illegally to South Africa, they have to get and have to pay for a 3,000 rand passport. That's a lot of money for anyone, especially people coming from rural areas, which are the main people coming to South Africa. And what we have to understand is, if we want to actually track these people, if we want to prevent crime in South Africa, if we want to have databases where all of these people are on, we have to let them in, and we have to have a border management control that allows people to come in legally instead of illegally. And what does this look like? This looks like having a border management control where legal immigration is easier than illegal immigration. And that allows these sort of issues that Gayton brings up about people illegally working on, white farms for less than minimum wage, issues of crime in South Africa that illegal foreigners are allegedly committing, is to have these people on South African police databases and then being able to manage them like we manage any other types of crime. So when the EFF says, okay, what we're going to do is have a African passport, or that functions similar to a European, card visa system, you can go between countries a lot more easily. We're not going to have people going through these borders illegally, paying a lot of money for people to put people through the borders, to smuggle them. Rather, you'll just have people going to the border using their united sort of passport system, going through the borders legally, and then having a DNA database and having a fingerprint database, and that allows these police to track these people a lot easier. And that's really the benefit of the EFF's immigration policy, because it firstly understands that these people are going to come anyway, let's do it right, where the rest of the parties refuse to admit that it's not really possible to prevent it. And then it goes back to the first point that I brought up about why these people are coming. So the EFF, from what we've analyzed, is that they look at the root causes of this question, and that's the root causes of addressing the economic issues within Zimbabwe, looking at addressing the issues in Northwest Africa, Western Africa, looking at addressing the issues in Congo, and that looks at developing value addition chains between these continents, setting up systems where free trade can be a lot more easier, where local exports within South Africa and our manufacturing industry in this country can be, increased by exporting and moving trade between all of these African countries. And what this looks like is that these countries are going to grow, their economies are going to grow. And specifically when it comes relation to government, we're going to have a lot more democratic forms of government within these countries, and therefore we're going to see these countries getting better. What that means is that we're not going to have illegal immigration coming to South Africa. By readdressing the sort of structural and global inequalities that affect the African continent as a whole, we'll be able to position South Africa in a way where we have a role to play that really affects and protects and helps the continent evolve to a point where immigration is